Hi everyone. So in this video we are going to take a look at what are the different types of controls available in PowerApps Canvas application. Also we are going to take a look at what are the different events associated with those controls. This video is basically for beginners who are just starting their development in PowerApps because it's really difficult to know like what controls can do which action and all these things where we have to find some properties. There are lots of property associated with each control, but we need to know like how we are going to use that properties. So basically in this video we are going to cover all those things starting from the functional part and some user interface part as well. Like in the development we can say CSS related things, right? So for every control in Power Apps we have that option to customize its look and feel also, but majorly our focus is going to be on the functional part. So first we will take a look at from basic. The first control we have is text label. So label is basically used to display the text. So it can be static or it can be dynamic. So here I have taken a text control. So as you can see on the right side, there is a property. We can call it as a property pane. We can specify the properties for the selected text control. So the first property is text. So whatever text we are going to or we want to show, we can specify here. So let's say if I copy some lorem ipsum text and if I put here in the text field, you can see the text is visible here. I'm going to make the font size as 32 so that you can easily see this. So after that we have the property called font. So font, we can customize the font like whatever the font available here. Only these fonts are currently allowed in our Power Apps Canvas application, but you can use other fonts as well. Font weight, we have to specify the font weight. So let's say if it's bold, then you can specify that one. The font style, you can set it as like italic. Then we have the underline option and we have the strike through option as well. Then there is a property called text alignment where you can align the text. So is it center align, left align, or right align? Then we have the property called auto height. So as you can see, I have written very large text, but you can see there some text are getting cut. So what you can do, if you want to adjust the height of this text label automatically based on the whatever the content you have, you can simply turn on the auto height option. So it's going to take the height automatically. So let's say if I just put my name here, then the height will be much smaller. You can see the text height is 61 here, but let's say if I put the lorem ipsum content, it's going to automatically adjust to 420. So that's what the auto height control does. Then we have the property called overflow. So overflow will not work if the auto height is turned on, because when we set overflow as scroll, so the height is completely okay, like there is no cutting text after this label. So if I reduce the height of this, you can see there is a scroll bar added, and that's because the overflow is set to scroll. If I set it to hidden, then there will be no scroll bar and I cannot see the remaining text. So the reason I said that overflow won't work if the auto is turned on, because the height is going to auto adjust it based on the amount of text. So we will not get the scroll if the auto height is turned on. Then these are the visible property, like if you want to show or hide this, then whatever the position, like you can set the x and y coordinates, you can set the width and the height. And here's the padding option as well. We have the colors, and all these are the CSS related things. If you go to advanced, then we have all the property listed here. You can see all these heights, you can play with it. So whatever the properties we see here are exactly the same in advanced, just that it's going to give a nice user interface. Like font, we have to set as Georgia, then font size 32. If you go to advanced, then if you check the font, here also you will get that option, but here you want to specify that font, like let's say Arial and all these things. So these properties mostly same for all the components, not components actually, for all the controls we have. So for the text, this is simple. Here I have put the static text, but if you want to put the dynamic text, you can do that. So let's say if I want to display the username, then we have that formula in PowerApp, that user dot full name. So in this way you can also specify the dynamic text as well. Then there is another property of the text that is called as the overflow. We saw that, and here we have the wrap property. So what wrap property does, I'm just going to add the logarithm some text here. So currently wrapped is turned off, so you can see the ellipses are here. So it will give only single line, and after that if there is a more text, there is a ellipsis at the end. But if you turn on the wrap property, it is going to wrap the text and show the complete content of the text. So this is the text label control. After that we have the input control. So I'm going to put the text input. So one thing to note that I'm not using modern control here. I'm just using the default theme controls. I did not turn on the modern control property because there are some formula changes in modern control and our classic controls. So the video you are seeing this, it's completely the default control. The modern control is turned off. So here is our text input property. So as you can see here also, the properties are same almost, like default, format, hint text, font weight and font sizes. So from now on we are going to just take a look at the main properties. So the default, what will does, if you want to set the default text on the text input, you can do that. So currently it is set as a text input, that's why the text input is showcasing here. So if you want to show the logged in user name here on the text input, so whenever they're logged in, so you can just write user dot full name. So if I play this app, the default text is set it as a username. After that we have the format option. So there are two format options, text and number. So in the text, it's a free text. If you select numbers, then it will restrict you to add numbers only. If I am typing the alphabetical characters, it won't allow me to do it. But if I put numbers, it can allow me. So numerical means it's a whole number or decimal points as well. So let's say if I add decimal number, it allows us. So for the number, you can use this format if you want to specifically accept the numerical format only. So it adds the one validation so that user cannot type any text characters. After that we have the hint text, so we can call it as a placeholder. So let's say there is a text input, you want to specify whatever the text input is, but if you're not using any label for that, so if it's just a simple text input, you can specify the hint text here. Like here I can use that hint text as a enter your name, so the hint text will appear here. So if I click on this input, the hint text will go on, and if I click outside, the hint text will be visible. After that we have the property called maximum length. So you can specify the maximum length of this text input. So let's say if you don't want your user to add more than 50 or 20 characters, so you can specify the maximum length here. So for now I will use the maximum length of, let's say, 25. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to add a new label that showcase the total length of the input string. So we have the formula called as length. So in the text property, use the formula called length and specify the text input control. So after that we can get the length of that input. So if I put my name, okay, I'm going to just make a format text because we are going to write alphabetical characters. So if I put my name, you can see the total number of characters is 5. The length property calculates the total number of characters, not the total number of words. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to simply paste the lorem ipsum here, but my text is more than 25, but it only allows me to maximum 25 characters. If I increase it to 5, it automatically trim all the remaining characters. So that's why the maximum length is used. After that, we have the advanced property. In that we have the on change event. So whatever the on change is, so whenever you type something, it triggers that event. So what we are going to do, we are going to take a look at that, how it's going to be work. So I have the label already added. So what I want to do is, whenever I change something in this input box, so the value will pop out automatically on that. So on the labels text property, I'm just going to reference that input text. And the second thing I want to do, I don't want to set the maximum length. I will play this app. So I will write my name, and you can see the name is appearing here. So on change property, what you can do, you can specify a variable, or you can directly store that value in that variable. So let's say if I'm going to use the object context, here I'm going to use var text, and in that I will store the input control text, and here on var text I will copy that and I will put it on the text label. So both works are okay. So if you are using the variable, that is also fine. If you are directly referencing to that text input, that is also fine. So let's say if I use my name, then it's going to showcase me that way. Now the main here's the important thing in that text input control, we have the property called delay output. So I will tell you what is the difference. So let's say I'm going to take two input controls. I'm going to delete it. Here is my first control, and here is my second one. I'm going to use two labels. Here's the first one and here's the second one. So for the second one, I'm going to refer the second input control property, and for the first one, I'm going to refer the first control property. For second control, I'm going to set delay output as true, and for the first one, delay output is false. So let's say what's the difference. I'm going to simply cancel this. So in the first control, I will put my name. So you can see the delay output is false, and whenever I'm typing something, it directly showing me here. But for this control, delay output is off. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to write my name here again. Let's say I'm going to write my complete name. But you can see it did not actually type as soon as I'm typing. The reason delay output is used because if you're typing something and if you take some gap, so let's say if I'm typing my name, let's say here is my name, or let's say here is my name, then if I take a pause like 1 or 2 seconds, then it's going to showing me that label. It's not directly updating that in the real time. It's going to take a pause. So if the user types in, if they pause for 1 or 2 seconds, then it's going to trigger that on change event, right? So that's the important thing. You can use the delay output property. Then this is for the input controls, text input. Then we have the text called input control called the date picker. So in the date picker, we can select a date only for now, but yeah, we are waiting that PowerApps should add the time picker control here as well. might be it's in available in modern control, but for the classic control you can only select dates here. So the date picker control, we have the property called as the date time zone. So there are two choices. The first one is you can select the local time. So whenever, whatever the region you are in, it will display the time accordingly if you select the date time zone as a local. But if you select it as a UTC, then it's going to show you the time in the UTC. So as you can see, as soon as I changed the format to UTC, it's showing me the date 18 August. But if I select local, it's showing me 19 August. If I go to advanced, there is a property called on change. So it works similarly. So on select and on change. So whenever I change some date or whenever I select the date, it's going to trigger that event. Then we have the property called default date, where you can specify the default date. So you can see the default date is set as today. This is the formula to get the today's date. So that's why it is showing me the today's date. You can select the default date, let's say static. So let's say I'm going to set the default date as, let's say this one. It's going to showing me default date as 27 February 2025, like this. Then we have the property called as end year. So in the date picker control, you can see there is a month and year associated. So currently the end year is 2050. So you can see the end year is specified 2050, but there are lots of cases where you don't want your user to select the future year or past year, let's say. So what you can see, you can just simply restrict the end year. Let's say current year is 2024. So if I open the drop down, and the last year is 2024 only. Similarly, as end year, we have the start year as well. This one. So it should start from, let's say, 2023. If I open this date picker, you can see there are only 2 years. The start one will be from 2023 and the end will be 2024. Then we have the format. So currently, as you can see in this date picker, I'm only seeing the month, day and year, uh, which is in a short date format. I also made a video on these formatting. I will also put that link in the description. So if you see what the date time format, if you check, there are lots of formulas here. So what all this format does, I already made a video on this topic in detail. I will simply put that link in description, so you can check it out that well. So let's say for now, if I use the long date time, so you can see it is showing me the complete date, Sunday, January 1, 2023, like this. If I choose the date time format as, let's say, long date only, then it's going to display me date only. There will be no time. So here you can see the format has been changed. So whatever format you choose does not change anything in your date selection. Then we have the start of the week. So generally in the calendar, the start of the week will be Sunday or Monday only. But yes, if you want to change it, so let's say start of the week is Sunday here. If you want to make it Wednesday, you can see the start of the week is Wednesday here. Now all these are the CSS related properties. You can explore it on your own. Like most of the properties are same, but I'm seeing like if there is any property which is important. But for date picker, I think all these are the controls. Okay. After that, we have the button. So button is really simple. We have only one property for the button, like the on select. So whenever we click on that button, we can put our formulas there. There is no extra important property for this control. All are the CSS related things. Then if I check under the inputs, we have the text input. We already saw that. We have the drop down and combo box. So these are almost similar. The only difference in drop down and combo box is in drop down you can select only one option, but in combo box you can select multiple. So here is my drop down control. So you can see there is a default property as well. Here we have the items where we can put the items here. And in the combo box, there is an extra feature that we can allow multiple selection. We can allow searching as well, but in drop down we don't have that option. Like we cannot search here, but in combo box we have that functionality that, let's say if I play this, I get the search box. Let's say if I put 5, then it search for the 5 in all the items, so it will filter out those items for me. So drop down we can use for if you have the 10 or 20 choices, then that is fine if you use drop down. But you have the 50 or 100 choices, like there is a country list, there is a city, state, there are lots of states and countries available, right? So you don't want to drop down control here, you want to use the combo box, because user are going to search instead of scrolling or to all the way to bottom, right? So this is the important thing. If you take a look at these both controls, there is both property on change and on select. For drop down as well, we have the property called on change and on select. Then we have these, let's say, items we can saw. Also there is a one property, so I will delete this control. So here's my combo box. So you can see it is showing as the find items. So this is what we called placeholder or a hint text. So from where we are going to change it. So if you look at the property called input text placeholder, it is saying that find items. So let's say this is the state list. I'm going to simply add a select your state. See, so this is the placeholder property. There is another property. So if that won't work for you, there's another property called a no selection text. So here also you can specify the no selection text. So here I am going to use the no selection text here. If I open drop down, if I select item 1, so notice that here we have the selector state as a placeholder. If I select item 2, if I delete item, you can see your input placeholder will stays here, right? So this is same as the text input control we saw earlier. Then we have the date picker and list box. We have the checkbox control. So for the checkbox, which is generally used for the option like true or false, like boolean values. We have the radio option as well, but radio you can only select one choice, so either it's yes or no. But in checkboxes you can have multiple checkboxes. So here also we have the property called text, where we can, let's say there's a checkbox called married. It's a check, that means the person, he or she is married. If it's unchecked, then it's not married, right? Then we have the default. If you want to set this as a default yes, you can check this toggle or you can uncheck this. There are some events associated, like whenever the option is checked, what should happen? Whenever the option is unchecked, then what should happen? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take a label here. So on this on check property, I am going to set a variable that set the variable as 1, and on its uncheck property I am going to set that variable to 0. Simply copy the variable and put the variable in the text control. So if I check this, it is 1. If I uncheck, it is 0. So these are the two events associated with the checkboxes. And let's say if you use the on select, then you don't try to formulas on different things like on check and on uncheck. But Checkbox is specifically used for check and uncheck. That's why I prefer to use on check and on uncheck events instead of on select, right? So after that, there is only CSS related things. After checkboxes, we have the radio option. So for the radio also, we have the on change and on select property. But in radio, you can select only one. Then we have the slider and toggle control. So slider control is basically if you want to use a rating like feature. We also have the control for rating, but yeah, if you want to more specifically for showing numbers, you can use the slider control. For the slider control, we have the maximum and minimum property set. So whatever the maximum limit that user can go up to. So currently it is set as minimum to 0 and maximum to 100. You can increase that limit. So let's say max I want 50, or let's say 500, and minimum I want, let's say, 20. So you can see default is set to 50, but minimum I can go to 20 and maximum is 500. So here is a default property. So if you want to select the default as 250, it's going to select 250. That's in middle almost. Then we have the control, that is pen input. So generally we are using for the e-signatures. So here it gives a really good canvas for us to sign. So for the mobile application, that's good to use, but yeah, in desktop, how you are going to type something in your sign using your mouse. If you have some other tools, you can do that, but yeah, for mobile, it's good control to use for the e-signatures. Then we have the controls that is called as the edit form and display form, which is more of the functional part. Because in edit form, let's say if you have already a SharePoint list or any database in the backend, when you use this form control, it will automatically creates the input controls, form controls for you. So let's say in your SharePoint list or in database, you have the text controls, you have number fields, you have the date and time control. So if you are building that form by scratch by adding the text input control and date picker control manually, it will take a lot of time to create those form. But using the form control, it automatically do all the works for you. So what I did, I already added one SharePoint list in my database. Here I am going to use the display form control. I am going to select the SharePoint list, and after I select the SharePoint list, it will create the form control automatically for me. So the list contains date picker, choice field, image and picture column. So form control will automatically make this form for me. So if I select the form and just place it here, okay. So you can see the full name, about us, all these are the text fields. Then departments, reporting manager, these are the people picker and lookup field. So based on the column configuration, it automatically created these inputs for me. So married is my yes no column, that is a boolean as I said earlier. So it gives me the toggle control. But for this, married means checkbox will makes a lot of sense. Toggle is not a good control option to make. You can just simply delete it or add a checkbox here. Profile image is my picture column, my SharePoint list. So it automatically add the picture type control for me, where I can click on that and it will ask me to select a picture from my system. So all these are the controls we can use, and this video purpose is basically for the beginners, like how they can see all the properties, what are the different properties associated with each component. Because it's hard, if they're using any control, then there are lots of property, and if you look at the Microsoft Learn documentation is very detailed, but yeah, if you read it from very top to bottom, it will take you a lot of time. But instead of reading that, you can just simply click on this control and you can just see the what are the properties available. Here I have explained you in very basic and very quickly like what are the different properties available and how you can play with it. But if you want to go in more detail, you can explore each and every property of that, because initially you can learn all these things, but if you are going to take a lot of time in power development, then it will be easier for you, because you will get to know all the properties and how the things works. Now these are basically for the controls we have. So there are lots of control, but in application we are not going to use all the controls. There are only 20 to 20 controls we are going to mostly use. Now the thing is, in PowerApps we have different screens as well. So for the screen also there are some events associated. So if I have one screen, I am going to add another screen. Let's say I'm going to add one blank screen. So for the screen control as well, there is a property called as on visible and on hidden. So what on visible does is, so whenever your screen is visible, then it's going to trigger that event. And on hidden property means whenever your screen hides, means if you transition from one screen to another screen, then on hidden event will trigger. So let's have a look how this works. So here is my screen 2. I will add a label so you can get on what screen I am. I can simply write screen 2. I'm going to make the text as 50, set the auto height to on, text align should be middle. Now in PowerApp, just a quick reference, if you want to get the name of the screen without directly typing here, you can just simply use app.activescreen.name. So it will give you whatever the screen you are in. Simply I'm going to copy this label, paste it, so it show me screen 1, and for the screen 2 it's showing screen 2. So for screen 2 selected, on its on visible property, I am going to show a notification that screen 2 is visible. Notification type will be, let's say, success, and I want to display it to 1.5 seconds only. And on its on hidden property, I am going to notification, but instead of visible, I am going to show the message screen 2 is hidden. Notification type will be, let's say, information. So there are 4 notification type. Error means it will give you the error information like in a red background. Information means it will give gray or blue background. Success notification will appear in green and warning will be in yellow. So let's say I'm going to use the warning. So by using colors you can easily identify which event has been triggered. I will go to screen 1. As you can see, as soon as I go to screen 1, the message displays. Correct? I will take a button and okay, no need, I guess. So here I'm screen 2. I will click on screen 2 here. Here it shows screen 2 is visible. Now I'm going to click on screen 1. So when I click on screen 1, the on hidden property, on hidden event will be triggered. So click on screen 1, you can see screen 2 is hidden. So these are the events for the screens. So this is the screen level. For the app level, we have the property called on start. So generally we can use the on start. So let's say setting some variable, setting some theme controls, your application color theme, UI theme, or some numbers, but it is not recommended to use on start to load your database. Let's say you have the SharePoint list and you imagine that I can load that SharePoint list on the very beginning of my app, but it's going to take a lot of time to load if the SharePoint list or any data source you are using is big. So use onStart to reduce the load. Like just set a variables or set your color theme, UI themes, or if you want to set some custom labels, you can use onStart, but do not use onStart to load the data from your data source. So it's not recommended. You can do that, but it is not recommended. So I think you guys can understand. If you are a beginner, then let me know how you think about this video, and if you want some more detailed video like how the control and every function works, I can make it. Just let me know in comments. And if you have any question or concern, or if you think I missed something to tell you guys, you can just let me know in comments. Okay, thank you. I hope you like this video.